Good morning. This morning we will pick up Joseph's story in Genesis chapter 39, verses 13 to 23. When she saw that she was holding his cloak and he had fled, she called out to her servants. Soon all the men came running. "Look," she said, "my husband has brought this Hebrew slave here to make fools of us. He came into my room to rape me, but I screamed. When he heard me scream, he ran outside and got away, but he left his cloak behind me." She kept the cloak with her until her husband came home. Then she told him her story. "That Hebrew slave you brought into our house tried to come in and fool around with me," she said. "But when I screamed, he ran outside, leaving his cloak with me." Potiphar was furious when he heard his wife's story about how Joseph had treated her. So he took Joseph and threw him into the prison where the king's prisoners were held, and there he remained. But the Lord was with Joseph in the prison and showed him his faithful love. And the Lord made Joseph a favorite with the prison warden. Before long, the warden put Joseph in charge of all the other prisoners and over everything that happened in the prison. The warden had no more worries because Joseph took care of everything. The Lord was with him and caused everything he did to succeed. What a mess! Again, through no fault of his own, Joseph's life is in a mess. Where is God in this story? Why would God permit such imprisonment? Does this struggle serve any purpose? Surely these questions were on Joseph's mind. In the words of Max Lucado, Joseph had done his best in Potiphar's house. He had made a fortune for his employer. He had adapted to a new culture. He had resisted the sexual advances. But how was he rewarded? A prison sentence with no hope of parole. Since when does the high road lead over a cliff? The answer? Ever since the events of Genesis 3, the chapter that documents the entry of evil into this world. Disaster came in the form of Lucifer, the fallen angel. And as long as Satan prowls around like a roaring lion, he will wreak havoc among God's people. He will lock preachers, like Paul, in prisons. He will exile pastors, like John, on remote islands. He will afflict the friends of Jesus, like Lazarus, with diseases. But his strategies always backfire. The imprisoned Paul wrote epistles. The banished John saw heaven. The cemetery of Lazarus became a stage upon which Christ performed one of his greatest miracles. Intended evil becomes ultimate good. From an earthly viewpoint, the Egyptian jail was the tragic conclusion of Joseph's life. Satan would chalk up a victory for the dark side. All plans to use Joseph ended with the slamming of the jail door. The devil had Joseph just where he wanted him. But so did God. Genesis tells us over and over that the Lord was with Joseph, and those around him recognized this. And how would they know? I believe that it was because Joseph took every opportunity to talk about his God. Even when he was asked to interpret Pharaoh's dreams, his response was, "It is beyond my power to do this, but God can tell you what it means and set you at ease." And in Genesis chapter 41, verses 37 to 39, we read, Joseph's suggestions were well received by Pharaoh and his officials. So Pharaoh asked his officials, Can we find anyone else like this man, so obviously filled with the Spirit of God? Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, "Since God has revealed the meaning of the dreams to you, clearly no one else is as intelligent and wise as you are." Joseph took every opportunity to talk about his God. And so, today's lesson is turn life's mess into God's message. Again, from Max Lucado. There is nothing trite about your wheelchair, empty pantry, or aching heart. These are uphill, into the wind challenges you are facing. They are not easy, but neither are they random. God is not sometimes sovereign. He is not occasionally victorious. He does not occupy the throne one day and vacate it the next. Jeremiah 30 and 24 tells us, "The Lord will not turn back until he fully accomplishes the purposes of his heart. In days to come, you will understand this." I cannot think of many messages in life greater than the one we are going through now, and from the sounds of it, this will go on for some time. But it does give us a unique opportunity to share God's message with others. We may be limited in actual contact with people, but we are still able to communicate with family and friends through Facebook, email, telephone, etc. This mess may be just enough to make people stop and think about their lives, and they may be ready for you to share what God has done and is doing for you. According to Corinthians chapter 1, verses 4 and 5, we experience the messiness of life for a reason. The following is taken from the Message. "All praise to the God and Father of our Master, Jesus the Messiah, Father of all mercy. God of all healing counsel. He comes alongside us when we go through hard times, and before you know it, he brings us alongside someone else who is going through hard times so that we can be there for that person just as God was there for us." Bob Benson, in his book, See You at the House, tells how one of Bob's friends suffered from a heart attack, and months after he had recovered, Bob asked him, "Well, how did you like your heart attack?" "It scared me to death, almost." "Would you like to do it again?" "No." "Would you recommend it?" "Definitely not." "Does your life mean more to you now than it did before?" "Well, yes." "You and Nell have always had a beautiful marriage, but are you closer now than ever?" "Yes." "Do you have a new compassion for people, a deeper understanding and sympathy?" "Yes." "Do you know the Lord in a deeper, richer fellowship than you ever realized was possible?" "Yes." "And so I ask you again, how'd you like your heart attack?" Rather than ask God to change your circumstances, ask him to use your circumstances to change you. Turn life's mess into God's message.